Age of by Oneohtrix Point Never is my favorite record. While the exact album I listen to most frequently in any given period of time shifts around pretty much constantly, I still find it endlessly refreshing and entertaining to revisit Age of. It's interesting pondering the functional and formal role the LP plays in our modern day and age of. We are inundated with an excess of musical media nowadays, and just from the subjective perspective of an enjoyer of music, I constantly find myself developing both new emergent music tastes and falling back upon cherished recurring fascinations I am extensively familiar with. On the topic of music and how we engage with it, I try to balance the convenience of streaming music with enjoying physical media, or the more ethically sourced digitally mediated music formats like download cards bundled with physical media, or platforms like Beatport, Bandcamp, or Bleep that support artists more directly than streaming tends to. When I'm not listening to physical media, I'm most regularly streaming music as a giant mashed up playlist of 30,000 something liked songs on shuffle. However, that's more in an effort to be exposed to the widest sort of network of music that I can. You can't beat the joy of discovering something you truly resonate with. I will frequently add an artist's entire discography to my liked songs if I hear something from them that I dig. I'm always devoting some auxiliary level of effort to continue growing that reservoir of mostly unheard tracks in my streaming services liked songs playlist. But despite my usage of streaming services and shuffled playlists, I still have a deep appreciation for the format of a long play record. As far as albums go, specifically records that are created with a genuine sense of intentionality and an identifiable thematic thrust, I have been continually thinking about Age of by Oneohtrix Point Never. Real name, Daniel Lopatin. I can confidently say that from around the spring of 2022 to now, early spring 2026, Age of by OPN continually embodies my personal platonic ideal of a favorite record. A big reason why I've latched onto this LP for as long as I have is because it just clicked with me in a unique and unshakable way. It was so perplexing and different that I eventually became somewhat obsessed with the record, and I wanted to collect my feelings and various musings on the LP into some sort of document or video or essay. Some kind of a video essay thing. I've been wrestling with the urge to channel my interest in Age of into a creative project for years now. I've drafted countless outlines and prototype documents, but the finalization of any given work has always seemed to elude me. It's easy to get caught up in scope creep when the subject matter you're covering spans from the dawn of the Anthropocene to a far distant imagined post-human future. But a far distant imagined post-human future is the conceit of the meta-narrative of Age of, and its associated live shows or tour called Myriad. Myriad refers to both the actual live installation concerts as well as the conceptual lore of the album. All of the music you hear off Age of and during the live shows are, as the concept goes, the generative results of the machinations of monolithic Sentinel Singularity AI beings. These monolithic Sentinel Singularity AI beings exist at the end of the universe, and to entertain themselves, they endlessly replay the fragmented memory detritus of the now long extinct human race. So, the scope of potential connections you can make to the conceptual narrative is far-reaching, to say the least. But I've decided to embrace the potential incompleteness that haunts any creative endeavor and just unapologetically record my various thoughts and conclusions. This is my attempt to arrange those jumbled thoughts, observations, and unique syncretic idiosyncrasies. The time has come to render this gargantuan and pentagruelian work of electronica arcana into a hopefully enjoyably long-winded video essay. Before going on, I think it is worth pointing out that I am not at all versed in the technical aspects of music theory, nor am I classically trained in any shape, way, or form. While I make music, the bulk of what I know about music composition is the basic surface level functions of a couple of individual synthesizers, a drum machine, a sampler, and even in that realm with the machines that I own and use every day, there is a world of knowledge I am still not privy to. But I am an avid collector of records, as well as a handful of cassettes and CDs. Listening to music is just one of my biggest hobbies. My musical perspective is much less rooted in hard theory, though. I approach music analysis from a more media studies point of view, I guess you could say. So the way I think about music is much looser and more conceptual than the way someone classically trained probably would. They would, I'm assuming, have a lot more technical knowledge and know an entire lexicon of notation and theory. And don't get me wrong, I would love to hear someone who knows their stuff break down the record in music theory terms. But as far as music goes, I'm just some guy who loves records and making simple analog synth beats, and these are my weird little takes on my favorite weird little album. That's not at all to say I will shy away from talking about the music. I have quite a lot to say about the actual sonic composition of the record. It's just worth remembering that whatever insights I may have to offer on any given work of music mentioned going forward will be approached from a lens more heavily rooted in the methodology of something like art history and literary or film or game criticism. In college, I actually studied and got my bachelor's degree in game design, which at my old university was part of their interdisciplinary studies program. And even though Age of is a musical project, my education has equipped me with the perspective of media analysis and a toolkit of strategies when it comes to creative ideation and problem solving, which I have been very grateful for as I've been in the process of writing this video essay. It's oddly fitting that my degree classification was interdisciplinary, and the associated courses of stuff like interdisciplinary research, game writing and criticism, media studies, and art history all seem to have been a sort of primer for this project's research process. It's also interesting that the terminology of cross-disciplinary endeavors cropped up quite a few times in my OPN interview reading I did as research for the essay. Myriad, after all, was an interdisciplinary installation to its core. Elements of the show with abstract panels for projections in front of swollen inflatable forms and sculptures hanging from the ceiling could adapt well to the environs of an art gallery. And certainly no aspect of Lopatin's output lacks for the kind of expositional grounding and interdisciplinary connections that power many lesser bodies of work. Andy Battaglia for Art News. It feels good to make a multidisciplinary show because as a fan of music, I would hate to go to concerts all the time and feel like there's something that needs to be addressed. Daniel Lopatin for Line of Best Fit. I don't often consciously transfer influences, although in general, this kind of interdisciplinary thinking makes sense to me. In all honesty, I'm not purely interested in a film score composition in the traditional sense. It's more compelling for me to think about hybridizing some of the functional aspects of sound in film. Daniel Lopatin for Mos Magazine. And in May, he will stage a monumental cross-discipline concertscape at New York's Park Avenue Armory. Christopher R. Weingarten for Rolling Stone. But just to put it quite simply, this is a vibes-based approach to music analysis, not at all one rooted in the mechanics of music theory. But I'm sure Age of could be wonderfully dissected and examined by someone with that musicological background. And even though the attitude and academic rigor of this essay is a bit more lax than a professional research paper, if I'm going to be asserting something that can be potentially disputed or is of central importance to understanding Oneohtrix Point Never and Age of, I will do my best to provide some sort of functional list of citations or references. I want to make sure this citation outline or bibliography allows sources cited for this video essay to be easily retrievable by the viewer, should they want to verify anything I say in their own time. Some of the claims and observations I make about the record might seem kind of abstract or outlandish, But when held up against Oneohtrix Point Never's own words on the records, my bizarre conclusions have some degree of subjective legitimacy, because to me, they reflect Lopatin's own ideas and driving vision behind Age of and Myriad. That being said, I never want to be putting words in anyone's mouth, or think that I could possibly understand the intent behind any work of art, or reduce a person's whole life to a footnote. So I want to include direct quotes from outside perspectives whenever possible. Thoughtful usage of quotations only serves to strengthen the rhetorical impact of what I have to say.